Hello everyone, I want to let y'all know that Patreon's coming. And also I just want to post another video because I have to post 3 videos a month for YouTube. So this is just one of them. You just needed to see this. Alright, to build this 3D printed creature, this is what I've done. I've put this together to where I build it in SketchUp. And as you see here, I'm putting the eyelid mechanism with the beads in place. And these rods here for the eyelids, I've had to measure these out. Now these are 52 millimeters, and I try to round everything off. And I place these servos, as you see here, they're forward. When I say forward, the so-called rotational is aiming frontwards. So now we're going to put this plate here where we add the servo, and this is the bottom plate or the mouth hinge mechanism and where the jaw goes. I got like 3 major components, 4 counting the so-called jaw, but I put these lip hinges together as you see here, and then I'll bring them in, and then this is the lips, and it's a 36 millimeter threaded rod, and it's a 2 millimeter threaded rod, and you would have to have nylon nuts. But this is what I've been dealing with as far as ordering all the parts, getting all the measurements correct, what you would need to do to build this animatronic. But I have a large list of links of what to order, and the screws here are 2 millimeter, 3 millimeter, and 4 millimeter, and they all have their nylon nuts. Also need to be ordered. But this is just part of it. But as you see here on this is upside down now. This is the jaw plate. And you see that this servo is forward as far as its rotational movement. And this one here is back rotational. So this one is actually flipped. But and this is, this has to be done this way for me to have clearance, for moving of the jaw, and plus the lip, the fork lip mechanism. Now, the so-called the one dangling that you see on the other side, that is threaded through the top plate to where it connects to the center lip. I'll just show you here. It just threads through in between the eyes, and it lays down and will connect to the other modular section that controls the brow and the servos in that batch of servos. But this is the putting the servo into the jaw mechanism, and you have to have a servo onto the jaw to move the lip, and this servo moves the lip. And then you move the jaw with another servo to make it open and close. Now, another way you could have done this would be with a cable, but you can't just put a hard link or a hard linkage to it, because it don't work that way. You'll be pulling against another working servo. But this is the top scaffold mechanism that holds the brows and that center lip. And as you see here, I have all these are done forward position as far as rotation of the placement of the servos. And also those neodymium magnets, as I got 2 here, and there's 2 also mounted in the skull cap. But this is pretty much part of building a kit, and it's like giving you instructions on how to build it, and this way when you put it together you won't have to take it apart as many times that I've taken this apart, because this is part of R&D, research and development, especially with this animatronic. But it's just part of it. And here's all 3 is what I call the modules, as because everything's modular. So you just place um, the lid mechanism on top of the jaw mechanism, and then you just keep building from there. Now, I don't have the screws listed or on this design as far as these are all 3 millimeters, and there are 2 millimeter screws for the servos, but and the linkage is just 2 millimeters. But as you see here, these are 8 3 millimeter screws and nuts that go straight through all the pieces, and then you top them off with a so-called nylon nut. Now this is the building of of the gimbal, and this is the only 4 millimeter screw that goes through this little angle piece is from Servo City, and it's used for shock absorbers for RC cars or robots or whatever. But and then I'm using these beams, and these beams are from Servo City too, and I use a few of these for this to hold the so-called chest piece in place. And these servos here, I changed them out from King Max to I changed those out to high-tech servos. And I'm trying to make a lot of these things where you can order in one place. But once again, I can't get everything in one place, but I kind of get like all the pieces that you need to order from Servo City and then Amazon and then so on and so forth on where you get these parts to build this animatronic. So all you're going to do is just print all these STL files and have all your parts, and you can build this exact replica of this 3D printed animatronic creature. But as far as like threaded rods, the eyelids are 52 millimeters. The upper lips are 36 millimeters, and the lower lip threaded rod, which is 2 millimeters, is a 61 millimeter rod. But this is where, when you order the whole rod, you know where to cut it at, and then that's where it's threaded, and you just put those nylon nuts on it. Now here's what I'm doing is I'm taking everything apart so I can research all of the parts, basically all the cables, all the Y cables, reversers, extensions, the screws, the pieces, and just list everything as far as linkages. But look, I hope this helps. I'm just trying to develop like an instructional, and I'm trying to get everything set up and on the Patreon so we can get y'all to build this animatronic and be a part of this. Here I'm just showing you, the little setups that I do. And a lot of these things is that we got to make sure that your servos are centered, because some of them come in through the mail and they kind of rotated, and that's where you plug it up with nothing connected to it, and then you can turn on the servo and it will center, and then that way you can put your arm and put the attachment screw through the arm itself, and then you can connect a linkage to it. That way you don't just connect the linkage to it and then turn it on and it could break the linkage or break something. It all depends on how strong the servo is, but that's the main part of pre-testing the servo and centering it first, so you'll have a location to put your servo arm. But also there's parameters that you can set on the radio, and also on software controller stuff where you can control the parameters of how far you want the servo to move. And also I wanted to show y'all some things that what this channel and the Patreon's going to be offering. It's just that we're not just going to be doing this one creature. There's other creatures that I'm going to be wanting us to do, and it's just just to show you, like this werewolf thing. I've made werewolves, masks and things like that, and actually done sculpting and stuff as far as with clay, and made like werewolves. I've always been fascinated with this. I guess that's why I kind of got into this, because grew up with American Werewolf in London, and The Howling was one of my favorites. But and I get to tinkering. I do other things for people, but then there's sometimes I just want to sit back and just test little things because I get to thinking, like this gimbal here, and you know, this would be like a werewolf neck mechanism, and I was just testing. There's these servo blocks from Servo City, but there's also these pan and tilt servos that you can get on Amazon. Now, some of these servos that they offer are somewhat, brands you've really never heard of before, but they're pretty good. But it's just some of them things you just gotta, just order some, and they're kind of like cheap. But if you put the center axis of rotation and doing a gimbal like this, you can kind of avoid like if you did a pan and tilt, you'd avoid the linkages needing to do it with a conventional U-joint, universal joint, and you can just control the tilt mechanism with one of these type of like a tilt servo. And these servos that they offer are robotic servos, and they're pretty high torque. But as you see here, I'm just kind of putting this thing together and just kind of doodling around, kind of making a werewolf kind of shape, and trying to avoid the muzzle being too long where I don't want to do an alligator. But and just I do these little doodle tests just to get you know where everything needs to be. And a lot of these things that I have made and tested before, I still have these files in SketchUp, and as you see, I can bring these files up and just pretty much, you know, add them to this new design. I'm just trying to make a simple wolf with the eyes won't move, they'll just blink. But and this is the neck has standard servos, and I would make it want to snarl and do things, and the ears move and things, but try to keep it limited, but make it realistic. But like these eyes here, I know everybody can't make eyes because it's quite expensive to make fake eyes, but these are taxidermy eyes, and I ordered some from Van Dyke's Taxidermy, and I made these blink mechanisms, and I could just pretty much put, hard linkages to it instead of these cables. But that's another idea of making, a blink mech with natural looking eyes. But it's just little things about that I've always researched and tried to develop, and this also could just be easier for y'all to just make a blink mechanism with some realistic eyes. But these little tests I've done over the years, like some of these things are 6 years old, and and like the bead eyes, I would recommend y'all to get some of these beads, and they're black and they're perfectly round, and they have a 2 millimeter hole going straight through, and I just thread that rod straight through, which connects the eyelids to it. Now, if you have a bigger bead, you just enlarge that eyelid to fit it, and it's really fun to do, and you can get certain effects if you tilt the design, if you could put you know more than two eyes, make some kind of a insect type creature. But as far as realistic eyes, as far as an iMac, that can be quite expensive because you're really getting down into putting a gimbal inside of a sphere. And that's the U joint that I'm using in some of my iMacs that I've done. And it's a 13 millimeter U joint, and I have it perfectly centered. And that's a process that I'm done in making my eyes to make a socket to where I can place that 13 millimeter U joint inside that socket to be perfectly center axis. And it's a tedious thing, but it's just part of it, especially when you want that realistic design. And then it can be 8 servos or it could be 4 servos. It is the more movements, the more realistic it's going to be. But like this little creature right here, I started tinkering around with certain things, and this is when I just had one printer. Now I've noticed that, I have a couple of printers, and I'll print a hole that is, a 3 millimeter hole. Well, I'm having to drill out that so-called hole because it's not recognizing that that hole's 3 millimeters or 3.1. And that's kind of a weird thing that I've experienced with like a new printer. But as you see here on these designs that I've done, I try to make everything kind of modular, a jaw or an iMech or BlinkMech. But, I just kind of play around with it and, kind of add on to a certain thing. And sometimes you'll add holes to a certain design where you don't have anything designed for that hole yet. But it's just part of it in research and development. As you see here, I always thought like put these ears on a werewolf would be kind of cool. But it's just like that's 4 servos to do the ears that way. But that would look kind of neat for a wolf. And in a werewolf that I'd like to make would be more realistic of a wolf than a creature or a wolf man. But it'll be scary, but it would be fun to do, and I'll have those STL files available. But I hope this helped. I just wanted to show you this, and plus I had to make a video. Thanks.